Okay, we're going to look at your expressions, statements, and operators C++ program. And we're going to first look at something a little bit interesting that's actually a little bit of homework. We'll look at evaluating expressions. Now, most of you know your order of operations for math, but in C++ it follows the same path, but I want you to actually look at these statements here. We already know how to declare some integers and print them out, but I'm going to assign them to x, z, and y here, and do a little mathematical operation, and you'll see the before and the after when I run it, and you'll notice that, and you can pause the screen right here, that before it's x gets 0, y equals 72, and z equals 0, which is how we initialized it. But when we do evaluate this expression here, and you print the after, x gets 85, y remains at 72, and z is at 85. Huh, very interesting, huh? Well, that's a little bit of homework for you, because those of you who think you know how to evaluate an expression, you may have gotten this wrong. So go ahead and look at the notes that I posted and try to figure out how this was evaluated. Alright, well, let's move on for a second here. Put that up there, or over there somewhere. Oh, Windows is being really tricky with me today. Okay, so in addition to that, addition, we have a plus sign, that's addition, subtractions with a minus sign, and divisions with a divider sign, like you normally would do in math. But in C++, the remainder is dropped when using integer division. Okay, so it will not give you the remainder or point whatever, because these are two integers, and once you divide two integers, the remainder is dropped. So you have to remember that when you're doing integer division in C++. Now, if you want to find out the remainder, you can use the modulus by the percent sign here in C++. And this gives you only the remainder, just the remainder only when you do that. So you could play around with this a little bit more, use different kinds of mathematical operations by using these symbols here. Another topic we should talk about is how certain bits of code might be playing into how you read it. And sometimes there's some shortcut methods of doing certain things. For instance, I declared an integer called score, and it gets the value of 0. This is how you normally would see how score plus 10 gets assigned back to score. But it also can be done by this plus get symbol here. This and this are equivalent. These two lines of code are equivalent. So if you see this, just keep in mind that these two lines of code are equivalent. And the same could go for score minus 10 and minus gets. It also could be read that way as well. A lot of this might be review for most of you, but I'm just going through it just in case. There are incrementing and decrementing operators in C++. These are the incrementing, when you use the plus plus symbol, and they increment by 1, and the minus minus decrements the value by 1. So in this case, let's see here, I believe score is 10 right now, or actually it might be 20 after this line here actually, but let's just say score is 20. Score would now be, after this line is evaluated, would be 21, and after this line is evaluated, be back to 20 again. Okay, so that actually brings me to a good point, because you notice that in C++ they are prefix and postfix operators. They both increment by 1, but the prefix is performed before the statement is evaluated, and the postfix is evaluated after the statement is executed. So let's take a look. This is the postfix, and this is the prefix, how they're written. And let's take a look at an example of that. Score gets 0. If I print out what score is now with using the postfix operator, I'll get a value. and I reset it back to 0, and I go ahead and print out what the prefix score is. Now let's take a look at what I came up with. And you'll notice that the postfix score is 0. Now notice I put a plus there, but this plus doesn't get evaluated until this line is executed. So therefore it will print score as 0. This plus will not be activated until this line is finished. So when it prints this statement, score is still 0. And the next line, like say right here, this is when score becomes 1. Now for the prefix, I reset it back to 0. This gets evaluated before the line gets executed, so therefore it prints the prefix score is 1. Okay, so you should probably take note of that, and that could be definitely exam questions. Hint, 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 just letting you know. And for more operators, because we have a lot of operators in C++, let's talk about the relational operators. Once again, this might be a review, but for most of you, I'm just going to keep on going. The equals is defined by the double equal sign. Not equals is defined by the exclamation point and the get symbol afterwards. Greater than is a greater than arrow. Less than is a less than arrow. Greater than or equal to is followed by the equal sign after the greater than or equal or greater than and less than signs. Okay, these are very good for evaluation purposes, so you should probably take note and write these down or memorize them. Okay, let's talk about conditional statements in C++. And the biggest conditional statement in C++ is the if-else conditional statements. If this is true, whatever the expression is inside of these parentheses, then it'll perform this task. So, in this if statement, there's the body of the code, body open bracket and close bracket. Whatever's in between these brackets will be performed if the evaluation up here is true. Else, if the statement is false up here, then this body of code will be performed. Okay, so if true, perform this. If false, then perform down here in the else statement. Here's an example. Score gets 2. If score equals 2, remember up here equals. If score equals 2, then print the statement the score is 2. If score is false, it doesn't equal 2, then you print the score is not 2. And as you can see here, we printed the score is 2 because I assigned 2 to score and I tested it and it was true. So therefore I made a print statement that score is 2. Okay? Probably get rid of that now. I don't have any more of those later. And to sum up our operators in C++, we have also logical operators. Now this is very interesting. Take note of these because they're very important on how to evaluate expressions. There's an AND in C++, and it's defined by these two ampersand signs. If both expressions are true, then it evaluates to true. Alright? If both expressions are true, then it evaluates to true. In the OR, by these two symbols here, if one of the expressions is true, then the statement evaluates to true. If one of the expressions is true, then this statement evaluates to true. And of course there's the not by the exclamation point, and that's the opposite of the expression listed. And here's an example. Here's using the ampersand right here, and this is the left side of it, and this is the right side of it. Now this expression could only be true if both sides are true. So, is 5 greater than 2? Yes it is. Is 5 less than 6? Yes it is. So therefore this if expression will evaluate to true because both sides are true. Let's take a look at the OR statement. If 5 is greater than 2, that's true, or 5 is less than 6, which is also true. So at least one of these expressions is true, and maybe I should just change that up here a little bit. If at least one of the expressions is true, that helps. So both happen to be true, so therefore this statement will evaluate the true. Now if one of these happens to be false, the other side is still true, so it still would evaluate the true. The only time this if statement will evaluate the false is if both sides were false. Okay? Now let's look at the other one. What might be a little confusing to you. If not grade less than 70, and what this means is trying to determine this expression if grade is less than 70, but you don't want to, if the grade is less than 70, you want the not grade less than 70. So you should probably read this as if the grade is not less than 70. That's the best way to put it. So whatever this expression evaluates to, pick the opposite of it by using the not, because you have the not symbol in front of it. So either way, that's the way you should probably look at both of them. Hopefully this tutorial was helpful in evaluating operators and expressions and statements in C++. I will see you in the next video.